Mara could never resist the call of the ocean. As a child, she would spend hours poring over books about marine life and legendary underwater worlds. While others were captivated by the stars, she felt an unshakable connection to the mysteries that lay beneath the waves. It wasn't just the shimmering schools of fish or the vibrant coral reefs. It was the silence, the feeling of another world hidden just out of reach. Now, as a marine biologist in her early 30s, Mara had spent countless hours diving into those mysteries. Yet, despite all the wonders she encountered, she always felt as though something was missing, as if there was a piece of the ocean's story she had yet to uncover. One rainy afternoon, Mara sat in her small seaside home surrounded by charts, notebooks, and glass jars filled with sand and shells from her travels. Her latest project, a survey of deep-sea bioluminescent species, was spread out before her, but her attention was drawn to an old leather-bound book resting on her shelf. The book had been a gift from her late father, a lighthouse keeper who had spent his life tending to the ocean's edge. It was a collection of myths and legends, most of which Mara had dismissed as fanciful stories when she was younger. But now something compelled her to pick it up. She ran her fingers over the worn cover and opened it, the scent of aged paper filling the air. One chapter, titled The Abyssal Junction, caught her eye. It told the tale of a mysterious underwater train station hidden deep in the ocean, where travelers could board a train bound for destinations beyond imagination. According to the legend, Abyssal Junction was not an ordinary station. It was a place where time slowed, where dreams and reality blurred, and where travelers could glimpse the secrets of the ocean itself. It was said to be long abandoned, lost to the currents of time. But there were whispers, old stories passed down by sailors, of a strange glow deep beneath the waves, marking the station's location. Mara's heart quickened. She'd heard similar stories from fishermen in a nearby village, tales of an otherworldly light in the ocean's depths. Most dismissed it as phosphorescent algae or a trick of the light, but something about the book's description felt different. It was as if the words were meant for her, as if they were waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to seek the truth. The next morning, Mara woke with a sense of purpose. The sun had barely risen when she began preparing for her journey. She wasn't entirely sure where she was going or what she would find, but the thought of discovering something extraordinary fueled her excitement. Her small research submersible, the Aquila, was docked at the marina, its sleek, pearly white frame gleaming in the morning light. The sub was equipped with cutting-edge sonar, reinforced glass for deep dives, and a propulsion system designed for maneuvering through narrow spaces. She had used it on countless expeditions, but today felt different. Today, the Aquila wasn't just a tool. It was her vessel into the unknown. She packed supplies, maps, a journal, her father's book, and enough food and water for several days. As she prepared, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being guided, as though an invisible hand was nudging her towards something significant. By midday, Mara was gliding over the open ocean, the Aquila cutting through the water with ease. The surface shimmered in the sunlight, but as she descended, the light grew dimmer, fading into shades of blue and green. Schools of fish darted past the sub, their scales flashing like tiny stars, and the soft hum of the engine was the only sound in the stillness. Hours passed, and the seafloor began to change. The coral reefs and sandy plains gave way to jagged rock formations and steep drop-offs. Mara checked her instruments, noting the increasing depth. She was approaching the edge of the continental shelf, a place where the ocean floor plunged into darkness. Her heart raced as she guided the submersible into the abyss. She was no stranger to deep-sea exploration, but this dive felt different. The water grew colder, and the light from above faded entirely. Mara activated the Aquila's floodlights, which illuminated the alien landscape around her. Towering rock spires loomed in the murk, and strange, translucent creatures floated past the windows. Then she saw it, a faint glow in the distance. Mara's breath caught in her throat. At first, she thought it might be bioluminescent algae or some other natural phenomenon, but the glow was too steady, too deliberate. She adjusted the sub's course, heading toward the light. As she drew closer, the glow resolved into a structure, a massive archway carved from stone and covered in shimmering algae. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, both ancient and otherworldly. Beyond the archway, a glass tunnel extended into the darkness, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse faintly with light. Mara brought the sub to a stop, her hands trembling on the controls. She stared at the tunnel, which seemed to beckon her forward. She hesitated for a moment, then made her decision. She activated the sub's docking mechanism and aligned it with the tunnel's entrance. As the sub latched into place, the faint hum of the station systems came to life, sending a shiver down her spine. The airlock hissed open, and Mara stepped out, her boots echoing softly against the tunnel's glass floor. The view took her breath away. Through the glass walls, she could see the ocean stretching endlessly in every direction. Schools of glowing fish swam past, their light reflecting off the tunnel surface. The faint hum she had heard earlier seemed to emanate from the station itself, as if it were alive. Mara walked slowly, her footsteps tentative. The tunnel led to a central platform, where a large, domed ceiling rose above her, adorned with glowing mosaics of marine life. The station was immense, its scale almost overwhelming. Platforms extended outward like spokes on a wheel, and faint lights flickered along the edges. She approached an old ticket booth, its glass cracked but intact. Inside, she saw an ancient machine covered in barnacles and coral. To her surprise, the machine whirred to life as she stepped closer. A compartment slid open, revealing a small, crystalline object, a ticket. The ticket glowed faintly in her hand, its surface etched with the same pattern she had seen on the tunnel walls. It felt warm, almost alive, as though it were connected to the station itself. As Mara turned the ticket over in her hands, a faint vibration ran through the platform. A low, resonant hum filled the air, and lights along the tracks flickered to life. The vibrations grew stronger, and in the distance, she heard the unmistakable sound of a train approaching. Mara's heart pounded. She gripped the ticket tightly and stepped back, her eyes fixed on the dark tunnel. Out of the shadows, a train began to emerge, a sleek, ethereal vehicle glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. The Midnight Express had arrived. The train emerged like a ghost from the abyss, its exterior shimmering with a silvery, almost translucent quality. It moved silently, as though it were gliding on invisible rails. The closer it came, the more details Mara could make out. Its sleek carriages were adorned with intricate carvings, their designs reminiscent of the bioluminescent pattern she'd seen on deep-sea creatures. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its sides, their meaning eluding her. Mara stood frozen as the train slowed to a stop at the platform. The doors opened with a soft hiss, releasing a faint mist that swirled around her feet. Warm light spilled from within, casting a golden glow on the otherwise cold, aquatic surroundings. The station seemed to hold its breath, as though waiting for her decision. She glanced down at the crystalline ticket in her hand, which now pulsed with a gentle rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Taking a deep breath, Mara stepped forward. Inside, the train was unlike anything she had ever imagined. The carriages were impossibly spacious, with ceilings that arched high above her, their surfaces adorned with glowing constellations of marine life. The floor was polished to a mirror-like shine, reflecting the soft ambient light. Plush seats lined the walls, their deep blue upholstery shimmering like the surface of the ocean at dusk. Mara walked slowly down the aisle, her boots barely making a sound on the smooth floor. The air inside was warm and carried a faint scent of salt and something floral, like seagrass after a storm. She noticed that each seat had a small, glowing panel embedded in the armrest. Curious, she ran her fingers over one, and an image appeared, a vivid, three-dimensional rendering of an underwater scene. The image shifted as she moved her hand, revealing different angles and perspectives. It was mesmerizing, but what caught her attention most was the realization that the scene wasn't a random depiction of the ocean. It was her ocean, her research site. The scene displayed the coral reef she had studied for years, down to the smallest details, as though the train somehow knew her story. A gentle chime sounded, and Mara looked up to see a figure approaching from the far end of the carriage. Her breath hitched. The figure was humanoid but otherworldly. Their skin shimmered like the surface of a moonlit sea, shifting between shades of silver and blue. Their eyes glowed faintly, like twin orbs of light, and their flowing robes seemed to ripple like water in a gentle current. "Welcome, traveler," the figure said, their voice calm and resonant, as though it carried the weight of the tides. "You have come to Abyssal Junction, a place between worlds." Mara's voice faltered as she replied, Who are you?" The figure offered a serene smile. "I am a caretaker of the junction, a guide for those who seek its wonders. You hold a ticket, which means the ocean has chosen you to embark on this journey." Mara tightened her grip on the glowing ticket. "A journey to where?" "That depends on you," the caretaker replied. "The train travels to places both known and unknown, to destinations of the mind, the heart, and the soul. It can take you to forgotten memories, future possibilities, or realms that exist beyond comprehension. But first, you must choose to trust the ocean and step fully into its embrace." Mara hesitated. Every instinct told her this was impossible, yet here she was, standing inside an underwater train guided by a being that seemed to belong to another realm. The logical part of her mind screamed for her to turn back, to return to the safety of her submersible. But another part, a deeper, quieter part, urged her to continue. The ocean had always been her home, her refuge. If this was where it led her, how could she refuse? "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling inside her. The caretaker's smile widened. "Then take your seat and let the journey begin." Mara chose a seat near the window, her hands trembling slightly as she placed the ticket into a small slot beside the armrest. The slot glowed for a moment, and then the ticket dissolved into a cascade of shimmering particles. The train's lights dimmed, and a soft vibration hummed through the floor as it began to move. Mara pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window, watching as the station receded into the darkness. For a while, there was nothing but the vast expanse of the ocean, illuminated only by the train's faint glow. Strange, otherworldly creatures appeared in the distance, translucent giants that glided silently, their forms shifting like liquid shadows. Mara felt as though she were floating in a dream, untethered from time and space. Then, without warning, the scenery outside began to change. The ocean faded into a kaleidoscope of colors, swirling and shifting like a living aurora. Shapes formed and dissolved within the light. Forests, cities, mountains, all appearing and disappearing in an instant. Mara's heart raced as she realized the train wasn't traveling through the physical ocean anymore. It was moving through something else entirely, a realm of possibilities where the boundaries of reality blurred. The caretaker reappeared beside her, their presence calm and steady amidst the swirling chaos outside. "You are seeing the in-between," they explained, their glowing eyes fixed on the shifting landscape, a place where the ocean's memories and dreams converge. It is here that the train draws its power, navigating the currents of time and imagination. Mara tore her gaze away from the window, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Why me? Why was I chosen? The caretaker turned to her, their expression unreadable. The ocean knows its own. It sees those who seek its secrets, who honor its mysteries. You have spent your life listening to its call. Now it offers you the chance to listen deeper. Mara opened her mouth to reply, but before she could speak, the train began to slow. The lights inside brightened, and the swirling colors outside faded into darkness. The train came to a gentle stop, and the doors opened with a soft hiss. Mara stepped out, her breath catching as she took in the sight before her. She stood on a platform unlike the one she had left, surrounded by towering pillars of glowing coral. Above her, the ceiling shimmered like the surface of a moonlit sea, and the air was filled with a faint, melodic hum. This was Abyssal Junction, not just a station, but a place alive with ancient magic and wonder. Mara stood at the heart of Abyssal Junction, her breath stolen by its ethereal beauty. The platform stretched endlessly in both directions, flanked by walls of glowing coral that pulsed like living organisms. Tiny bioluminescent creatures floated through the air, their soft light casting playful shadows. The melodic hum she had heard earlier resonated within her chest, like a song meant only for her. As she took a step forward, the coral pillars began to shift, their shapes rearranging themselves like dancers in a choreographed performance. Each pillar displayed intricate carvings, symbols, and images that glowed faintly. They depicted stories, some ancient, some yet to unfold. Mara approached one of the pillars, drawn to a particular carving. It showed a figure standing on the edge of a vast ocean, gazing down at the shimmering surface. Something about it felt familiar, though she couldn't place why. "You are seeing fragments of the ocean's memory," the caretaker's voice said softly behind her. Mara turned to find them standing a few steps away, their forms still shimmering like liquid silver. "Memories?" she asked, her fingers lightly tracing the carving. "The ocean remembers all that touches it," the caretaker explained. "Every life, every moment, every secret whispered to its depths. Here at Abyssal Junction, those memories take shape, waiting to be rediscovered." The caretaker gestured for her to follow, and Mara walked beside them as they moved deeper into the station. The air grew warmer, and the humming melody grew richer, layered with harmonies that seemed to echo from unseen corners. As they walked, Mara noticed other travelers appearing in the distance. They seemed like shadows at first, barely there, but as she drew closer, they took on solid forms. Some were humanoid, like the caretaker, while others were entirely alien, beings with elongated limbs, translucent bodies, or shimmering scales. Each carried a glowing ticket, just like the one Mara had held. "Who are they?" Mara whispered, her voice reverent. "Seekers, like you," the caretaker replied. "Some come to uncover truths, others to find something they have lost. Each journey is unique, guided by the currents of the ocean's will." Mara studied the travelers, feeling a strange sense of kinship with them despite their differences. They, too, had been drawn here by something greater than themselves. The pair arrived at an expansive hall, its ceiling arching high above like the inside of a great shell. In the center of the room stood a massive, circular pool filled with water that shimmered like liquid light. Its surface was impossibly smooth, reflecting the glowing coral pillars that surrounded it. "This is the Nexus," the caretaker said, their voice hushed with reverence. "From here, the ocean's memories flow outward, connecting every realm it touches." Mara stepped closer to the edge of the pool, mesmerized by its radiance. As she gazed into its depths, images began to form, scenes from her own life. She saw herself as a child, standing on a rocky shore, her tiny hands reaching for a tide pool teeming with life. She saw herself as a young scientist, diving into the ocean for the first time, her heart racing with exhilaration. But then the images shifted. She saw things she didn't recognize, places she had never been, people she had never met. A vast underwater city bathed in golden light. A giant sea creature with eyes like glowing stars. A woman with hair like seaweed and a voice that resonated like a song. "What is this?" Mara asked, her voice trembling. "The Nexus shows you the threads that connect you to the ocean," the caretaker explained. "Some are memories, others are possibilities. The ocean does not distinguish between what was, what is, and what could be. To it, all moments are one." Mara felt a sudden pull, an irresistible urge to touch the water. She hesitated, looking to the caretaker for guidance. Only those who are ready may enter, they said, their glowing eyes steady. The Nexus will show you what you need to see, but it will also demand something in return. A piece of yourself, a memory, a secret, whatever the ocean deems fitting. Mara's heart pounded. She had always believed in the power of the ocean, its vastness and mystery, but this was something beyond her comprehension. And yet, she couldn't turn away. Taking a deep breath, she knelt by the edge of the pool and reached out. The moment her fingers touched the surface, a ripple spread outward, and the room around her dissolved into light. She was no longer in the hall. Mara found herself standing on the seafloor, surrounded by towering kelp forests that swayed in a non-existent current. The water was warm and clear, filled with shimmering particles that glowed like tiny stars. She felt no pressure, no need to breathe, as though the ocean had made space for her within itself. Ahead of her stood a figure, human in shape but entirely made of light. Their form flickered, shifting between shapes as though they were a projection of something larger. "You have come far," the figure said, their voice layered with echoes. "But the journey is only beginning. Who are you?" Mara asked, her voice steady despite the strangeness of the encounter. "I am a fragment of the ocean's will," the figure replied. "A guide like the caretaker, but also a guardian. You have been chosen to carry its story, to become a bridge between the surface and the depths." Mara's mind raced. Why me? What am I supposed to do? The figures stepped closer, their light intensifying. "You have always listened to the ocean's call, even when others could not hear it. Now it asks something greater of you. There are truths hidden in its depths, truths that could change everything. You must find them and decide what to do with them." Before Mara could respond, the kelp forest dissolved into darkness, and she was back at the edge of the Nexus pool. The caretaker stood beside her, their expression calm but watchful. "What did you see?" they asked. Mara hesitated, the memory of the light figure still fresh in her mind. "A message," she said finally. "Or maybe a warning." "I'm not sure yet." The caretaker nodded. "The ocean rarely speaks plainly, but it always speaks truly. The train will take you to the next step of your journey. Trust in the currents, Ma." As Mara stepped away from the Nexus, she felt a weight settle on her shoulders, a mix of wonder and responsibility. Whatever lay ahead, she knew it would test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. But the ocean had chosen her, and she would not turn back. The train awaited Mara at the edge of the platform, a gleaming masterpiece of engineering and mystery. Its exterior was crafted from a shimmering, iridescent material that seemed to flow like water while remaining solid. Bioluminescent patterns swirled across its surface, forming intricate shapes and symbols that pulsed in time with the melodic hum of abyssal junction. Mara hesitated for a moment before stepping aboard. The train doors opened soundlessly, and a soft glow welcomed her inside. The interior was a dreamscape of underwater elegance, seats upholstered in soft, coral-like material, glowing strands of kelp hanging like curtains, and walls that appeared transparent, offering a panoramic view of the ocean beyond. As she took her seat, the train began to move. It glided forward with an effortless grace, the hum of its engine blending seamlessly with the ambient melody of the station. Mara watched in awe as the scenery outside shifted. The train descended deeper into the ocean, leaving the radiant glow of Abyssal Junction behind. The waters grew darker, the light from the surface dimming until it was a faint memory. Yet the darkness wasn't oppressive. It was alive with tiny, glowing creatures, jellyfish that pulsed with electric blues and purples, schools of fish that shimmered like liquid silver, and strange, alien organisms that defied description. As the train traveled, Mara noticed that the glass-like walls were more than just windows. They acted as portals, displaying not only the present but fragments of the past. She saw ancient underwater cities, their spires and domes cloaked in coral and time. She saw massive sea creatures gliding through the depths, their forms both majestic and terrifying. And she saw glimpses of herself, moments she had lived and moments she had yet to experience. The train slowed as it approached its first stop. A soft chime echoed through the cabin, and the doors opened to reveal an underwater cavern bathed in a strange, golden light. The platform was adorned with glowing crystals, their light casting intricate patterns on the rocky walls. A few passengers disembarked, their forms blending into the cavern as though they belonged to it. Mara considered stepping out, but the pull of the journey kept her in her seat. She felt the train was guiding her somewhere specific, a destination that called to her as strongly as the ocean's hum. As the train resumed its journey, the atmosphere inside the cabin shifted. The once gentle hum grew deeper, resonating with an almost tangible weight. Mara felt a subtle pressure in her chest, as though the ocean itself was testing her resolve. The scenery outside grew stranger. The waters were no longer filled with familiar creatures, but with forms that seemed born of dreams or nightmares. Tentacled beings with glowing eyes moved with eerie grace, their forms both beautiful and unsettling. Structures that resembled organic machines dotted the seafloor, their purpose a mystery. Mara's curiosity overcame her unease. She reached out to touch the glass-like wall, and the image of one of the machines sharpened. It was a towering construct, its surface alive with shifting patterns of light. She could sense it wasn't abandoned. It was waiting, its purpose dormant but not forgotten. "What is this place?" she murmured to herself. The caretaker's voice answered, though they were nowhere to be seen. "You are entering the forgotten depths, a realm where the ocean's oldest secrets are kept. Few have ventured here, and fewer still have returned." Mara straightened in her seat, her heart pounding. "Why was I brought here?" "To understand," the voice replied. "And to choose." "Choose what?" The caretaker didn't answer, and the train continued its descent. The next stop was unlike anything Mara had seen. The train emerged into an enormous underwater canyon. its walls carved with symbols and images that glowed faintly in the darkness. At the center of the canyon was a structure that took her breath away, a vast circular temple made of black stone, its surface shimmering with veins of gold. The train came to a halt, and the doors opened with a soft hiss. Mara felt an almost magnetic pull, urging her to step outside. She hesitated, glancing around the cabin. The other passengers remained still, their expressions serene but unreadable. Gathering her courage, Mara stood and stepped onto the platform. The moment her feet touched the ground, the train doors closed, and it glided silently away, leaving her alone in the canyon. The path to the temple was lined with glowing stones, their light guiding her steps. As she approached the entrance, she noticed carvings on the walls, depictions of beings both human and otherworldly. Some appeared to be in harmony, their hands extended in gestures of peace. Others seemed locked in conflict, their forms twisting in a chaotic dance. The temple's entrance was an archway of black stone, its surface etched with symbols that pulsed faintly. Mara hesitated before stepping inside, her instincts warning her that she was crossing into a place of immense power. The interior of the temple was vast and open, its ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. At the center of the room was a circular pool of water, its surface as still and reflective as a mirror. Above the pool hovered a sphere of light, its radiance pulsing like a heartbeat. Mara approached the pool, drawn to the sphere. The air grew warmer, and the hum of the ocean resonated in her bones. She felt a presence in the room, though she saw no one. "Welcome," Mara, a voice said, deep and resonant. It was not the caretaker's voice, but something older, more profound. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am the guardian of the forgotten depths," the voice replied. "You have been brought here to face the ocean's truth. Step into the pool, and you will see." Mara hesitated, fear warring with curiosity. But she had come this far. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the water. The moment her feet touched the surface, she was engulfed in light. The room, the temple, the canyon, all of it disappeared. She was suspended in a void of shimmering colors, her body weightless. Images began to form around her. She saw the ocean's creation, its vast expanse born from chaos and order. She saw beings of unimaginable power shaping its depths, their forms both terrifying and beautiful. She saw civilizations rising and falling, their triumphs and tragedies etched into the water's memory. And then she saw the present. The fragile balance of the ocean threatened by forces from above, pollution, greed, and indifference. She saw herself, a tiny figure in the grand expanse, standing at the threshold of a choice. "You are the bridge," the voice said, echoing in the void. "Will you carry the ocean's truth to the surface, or will you leave it buried in the depths?" Mara's heart raced as the weight of the decision settled over her. She didn't yet know the full truth, but she knew one thing: her journey was far from over. The void of shimmering light around Mara dimmed, and she found herself standing once more in the center of the temple. The glowing sphere above the pool pulsed steadily, waiting for her response. The silence of the room was profound, the weight of the ocean's truth pressing against her like an unseen tide. Her mind raced with the vision she had seen, entire civilizations shaped by the ebb and flow of the sea, ancient beings who had both nurtured and warred within its depths, and the fragile harmony that now teetered on the edge of destruction. Every image felt alive, each detail etched into her memory as though she had lived it herself. The Guardian's voice echoed again, deep and resonant, filling the space like the roar of distant waves. You have glimpsed the ocean's memory, Mara. You stand at a crossroads, one that few are chosen to face. What will you do with what you now know? Mara gazed at the sphere of light, her reflection rippling faintly in the still waters below. You've shown me so much, she said, her voice trembling. But what can one person do to change a world so vast? You underestimate the power of a single choice, the Guardian replied. The ocean is both vast and fragile, its future intertwined with those who dwell above. Will you bear its truth to the surface, or will you leave it buried here, safe but forgotten? Mara closed her eyes, the weight of the decision heavy on her chest. She thought of her life on the surface, the humdrum days spent going through the motions, the quiet ache of feeling disconnected from the world around her. And yet she also thought of the ocean's vastness, its beauty and mystery, and the profound connection she had felt on this journey. When she opened her eyes, her decision was clear. I will carry the truth to the surface, she said, her voice steady. The world above needs to understand what's at stake. Even if I'm only one person, I'll do what I can. The Guardian's voice softened, carrying a note of approval. You have chosen the path of the bridge. The journey ahead will not be easy, but the ocean will guide you, as it always has. The sphere of light pulsed brightly, and the temple began to change. The carvings on the walls glowed with renewed energy, their symbols shifting and rearranging. The pool of water rippled, its surface shimmering like molten silver. Mara felt a warm current swirl around her, lifting her gently from the ground. The light enveloped her, and she felt herself rising higher and higher until the temple, the canyon, and the depths of the ocean faded into a blur of colors and light. When the light receded, she found herself standing on a rocky shore. The moon hung low in the sky, its silver light reflecting on the gentle waves. The sound of the ocean filled the air, its rhythm steady and soothing. Mara turned to look at the water, and for a moment, she thought she saw a faint glow beneath the surface, a reminder of the world she had just left. The memories of Abyssal Junction, the train, the passengers, and the Guardian were vivid, as real as the sand beneath her feet. In her hand, she found a small, glowing token, a fragment of the sphere of light. Its warmth radiated through her palm, tangible connection to the depths she had vowed to protect. She stood there for a long time, the weight of her choice settling over her. The surface world felt both familiar and foreign, but she knew she couldn't turn back. The ocean's truth was now her truth, and she would carry it forward, one step at a time. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Mara began to walk. The token in her hand pulsed gently, its glow guiding her path. She didn't know where the journey would lead, but she felt a quiet certainty in her heart. The ocean's hum still resonated within her, a song of hope, warning, and connection. And as she moved forward, she realized she was no longer alone. The currents of the deep, the wisdom of the Guardian, and the quiet strength of the ocean itself were with her every step of the way. The journey had only just begun.